All right, we're back for this week's Allies and Alliance coaching call. I got a special guest for you guys. Something that I'm not an expert in at all. My team has done a few of these when I used to do nationwide wholesaling about 2 years ago, but I've never went through a whole process myself. But I've been more and more intrigued about learning about this system, and a lot of people are implementing this system with the market kind of pulling back and to add more tools in the toolbox, so to speak, to get more deals done. So we're going to be talking about Novations. Who here has heard of Novations? Raise your hand. Okay, only a few of you guys. This will be good for you guys. Well, we've got a special guest, Mr. Eric Brewer. Eric has been doing this for a long time. He's the expert in the field. I'm going to give him the mic. Eric, we appreciate you coming on, man, and give us your time and giving us some value here. Why don't you unmute yourself, give us a little 50,000 foot view, who you are, where you're from, and what you got going on.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. I am in central Pennsylvania. I'm about an hour and 30 minutes west of Philadelphia, 45 minutes north of Baltimore. So I'm right on the PA Maryland line. I started in this business about 18 years ago. After a stint in the military, I did my time in the U.S. Army, came home, stumbled into a job in the car business, spent 8 years slanging cars, and got burned out of the car business, made a decision to get into real estate in 2006. And I'm here today. I've done just north of 5,000 real estate deals and about 1,500 novations, which I'll clearly explain a little bit more about today. Not super unlike wholesale, same basic requirements, just quite frankly, the easiest part, it gives us the ability to pay way more for properties, and we don't have to exclusively buy fixer-uppers. So it gives us the ability to be able to monetize and retail turnkey properties. So really opens up your lead funnel, gives you a way to, in some cases, I'll show you a few examples, double your profit even on your wholesale deals. So super excited to be here. I've known about Chris for a while. We have a couple mutual friends. Never had the opportunity to do anything together. So just excited here to share something with you. I think that'll challenge your perspective a little bit. We get so locked in and focused on what a wholesale lead looks like, what a wholesale buyer looks like. And I'm here really just to really challenge the way that you think about this business and hopefully open up a whole new world for you that'll help you make a bunch of money.
Awesome. Who wants to learn about this stuff? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, all Eric, about learning about making money.
Eric, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it here for you. You kind of just pour into these guys. We can free flow it. I'm not gonna really, we'll probably interject if you're okay, ask some questions here and there throughout.
I have some slides that'll help me explain this. Can you give me the ability to share my screen and I'll get started?
Yep. Let's see. May Coast. All right, I made you the host. Eric, just don't forget after we're done, give me back. I need to give myself back the host, otherwise it won't be recorded.
No problem. All right. If you can see this slide here, just give me a quick thumbs up. All right, let's go it. So let me give you a little background about who I am and why I think you should consider listening to what I have to share with you. I'm a husband and father. I have 6 children. I've been doing this for just over 17, almost 18 years. I'm the founder of Integrity First Home Buyers, over 3,000 real estate investment deals and over 1,000 novations. I currently coach about a dozen business owners on business operations and leaders. And I've created and innovated the process that I'm going to show you here today that's known as the Brewer method. One of the best ways I've found to explain something is through contrast. So the best way that I can sort of open your mind as to what innovation is by simply comparing it to something we all probably know, which is what a wholesale deal is. So step one of that is let's just go through and agree on what a normal wholesale deal is. In its simplest form, we find a motivated seller, and if they have an ugly or distressed property, those are the two components that generally give us an opportunity to get a really, really, really good deal, right? And generally, what we want to do is negotiate a low offer at a deep discount with the seller, get them to sign a purchase agreement. We then take our deal and we go out and market it for cash buyers. We negotiate with that cash buyer. And then hopefully what happens is we're able to sell that deal to a cash buyer for an assignment fee, right? So that's like our basic wholesale sales funnel. So if you look at the new way of doing business, I would say it looks like this. We have the ability to now make offers on ugly houses and pretty houses. This tool will give you the ability to make higher offers. I'm going to show you how to use the Novation agreement. And then that gives you the ability to take all of your properties and list on the MLS. I'm going to talk about why the MLS is such a powerful tool, and how it opens up really the ability to sell to not just cash investor buyers. The MLS, I believe, is the world's best buyers list. It's got newer investors, which if you ask most people how their first flip ever went, they'll tell you that they either didn't make much money or lost money, and generally it's because they overpaid. There's one thing that I know, and I invest a lot of money in data, is that every year for the last 15 years, the largest pool of buyers in the US that buy investment real estate are first-time investors. They also pay the most, right? So where do most of those people shop? They shop on the MLS with a realtor. Every time we take a wholesale deal or any deal and we're forced to sell it off market, we are almost certainly leaving money on the table. So what I want to show you is how to use Novations in the MLS to maximize your exit on all of your deals. The end process is you'll get top dollar for your deal. So the way that I generally explain the business of wholesaling, right, is we sift through, on average, 100 leads to maybe get one deal. So it feels a little bit like looking for a needle in a haystack, right? We cold call 100 people, we mail 100 people, we get 25 PPC leads or 25 PPL leads, and hopefully we're able to get someone that has a reasonable price. They're probably in a messed up situation and have a messed up house, and we can negotiate a price that works for us. That can be frustrating, right? Someone in the call earlier said, hey, you just got to be dumb enough not to quit. Well, why do most people quit? Because they don't work through the 50 or 70 or 100 leads that say no before they actually get to a yes, right? It'll really test your perseverance. But it feels a lot like looking for a needle in a haystack. What I'm going to show you will actually give you the ability to just sift through a pile of needles, right? You're going to have way more sellers that you can do business with. Then what happens when you get a deal? The market, at least in the markets that I'm in right now, has started to pick back up on the cash buyer side. But I would say about mid-2022, when rates started to really scare people away, I saw a lot of my landlord investor buyers really pull back. When they were borrowing money at 3% and 4%, they were able to pay top dollar for my deals and still cash flow. But once the rates started going over 6 and 7, and in some cases 8%, a lot of my landlord cash buyers pulled back. There were a bunch of flippers across the country that got their teeth kicked in when the rates went up. I'm in a couple masterminds with some flippers in Las Vegas, Southern California, some markets in Florida where the values literally dropped 15 to 20% over the course of about 6 months. And they were losing, in some cases, $50,000 to $100,000 on each flip. So what happened after they recovered from those deals, if they were dumb enough to keep going and get back into the market, they started being really conservative for what they were offering. So I saw a ton of investors. I've now taught this to just over 500 investors across the country. A ton of people in mid-2022 saw that a lot of their cash buyers were either pulling back, not making any offers, or offering them significantly less than what they were paying just 3 months earlier. So they're sending their deals out to their buyers list, and it's crickets. When we leverage the MLS and we use the power of Novations, we then end up more like this situation on the right. We're taking our property to the MLS. We have the ability to sell to retail buyers. That's the real tipping point in these deals, is when you novate, you can sell your deals to retail buyers using retail financing. FHA, VA, USDA, Fannie Mae, right? We're not forced to sell to cash investors that want a good deal. So what is an actual novation? I know there was only maybe a handful of people that kind of heard of it and maybe knew what it was. A novation in its simplest form is when in real estate, a party, term, or obligation is replaced with another. The key language being replaced. If you think about wholesale, it's an assignment, right? We don't replace our interest in an assignment deal, we assign it. But that's what makes assignments unfinanceable to retail buyers. When we replace a deal, replace a novation, it now becomes financeable, right? So that's the dictionary version of a novation. It's a replacement of an agreement. That's it. So what does that mean to your real estate business? Wholesale, right, we talked about, is generally done by way of assignment and most frequently to an investor. Novation, because it's a substitution or replacement agreement, can now be sold to a retail buyer using retail financing. So now if you just think about the last deal that you got, right? Someone got a deal, a home run, he's making 34 grand on. What would a retail buyer pay for that property if he took it to the MLS? Cash guy paid 59. Maybe a retail buyer that wanted to live in it might pay 75. So instead of making 34, you make 50. Pretty interesting, right? Another 16K on a deal you already have in your pipeline. So here's what I've seen. Again, I've taught this to just about 500 investors across the country. Wholesale prices nationwide range between 13 and 20, depending on your market and your level of experience. Novation deals for the exact same markets that those people in, making 13 to 20 on wholesale, they're making 26 to 40 on novation deals. So that's why I think every investor needs to pay attention to this. It shouldn't be, do I wholesale or do I novate? It means every time I get a lead, I'm going to buy it at the best possible price, and I'm going to exit it at the best possible price, right? That's when you're really being a good investor, is when you maximize every opportunity. This will give you another tool to do that. So one thing, I've been doing it for about 18 years, wholesale. I started doing novations in 2009. The reason is in 2006 and 7, the easiest thing to do in real estate was to get a mortgage. Like literally, if you had a pulse and a bank statement, banks would give you a loan. So for flippers like me, I was putting all my deals on the MLS. They were selling in a day. I'd go out and do it all over again. As soon as the economic crisis started to unfold, the hardest thing to do in the world was to get a mortgage. It got really, really, really difficult for consumers in 2008 to get a mortgage. The mortgage company was losing millions and billions of dollars. And what they did was they really started to tighten up lending requirements because there was all this fraudulent lending going on before the market collapsed, right? It's what fueled the recession. So in 2008, I'm buying homes off the MLS. It was a really good time to buy. I mean, I was buying HUDs off the government website for 30 cents on the dollar. The problem is when I was selling my flips, every borrower in 2008, 9, and 10 was using FHA financing. And if any of you have done any flips, flipping a house to an FHA buyer is a nightmare. There's seasoning requirements, there's inspections. If the value increases by more than 150%, you have to get 2 appraisals. So in 2006, I was flipping homes in 6 weeks. In 2008, I had to hold it for 6 months before I could even sell it to a buyer. I was in a tough spot. I was doing 150 flips a year, and my cash conversion cycle went from 6 weeks to 6 months. I was sweating bullets. So I started looking for solutions. Well, in 2009, I did my first novation. And what I found is novations, because I was replacing myself in a deal, it allowed me to completely circumvent FHA seasoning requirements because I was never on the deed. So it became a really big part of my business back then. And now it's about 40% of all the deals I do as novations. I'm in a kind of small market. I have less than 1 million people in my market. And last year, we were able to squeak out about 350 deals. So 40% of those are novations. Quite frankly, if I didn't do novations, I'd hardly make any money. I just don't have enough people in my market to support 300 wholesale deals a year. And I don't love doing flips. I'm not super good at construction. And I just don't enjoy it. I like sales. I like marketing. I like making a deal. Construction some days makes me want to gouge my eyes out. So I started teaching this about 3 years ago, and we have lots and lots of customer success. So I'm going to show you like 2 areas where Novations will really make a big difference in your business. Generally, what I want you to think about is the problem that most of you, if you're generating leads, I heard you guys doing some direct mail. And what'll happen is you'll get a lead. This happens to us, I mean, 3 or 4 times a day. We'll talk to someone and they're interested in selling their house. They're generally sort of motivated, but they're saying things like, I don't want to give it away, or I'm not in a hurry, right? And what happens is, as wholesalers, we can't make that deal work. If they'll take 15% off of retail price, we generally can't make that deal work. So that goes back to when we have to talk to like 10, 15, 20 sellers before we could maybe find a deal. What I'm going to show you is by using Novations, this will give you the ability to make $26,000 to $40,000 on leads that you probably are talking to right now that you're throwing away. They're calling in and they have a nice house. They bought it 3 years ago. It's all fixed up. They went close to Zillow. And if you're like most investors, you're going to go, sorry, it doesn't fit my buy box. Sorry, I can't help you. Sorry, you're not motivated, right? This will give you the ability to make $25,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 on those exact same leads. So here's how it works. There's 2 different ways that Novations will positively impact your business. The first is on deals you're already doing. These are agreements you're already locking up and you're selling to your buyer's list and making a fistful of money. So let's look at a scenario here as an example. ARV's 250, right? Most investors are using, say, 70 to 80% of ARV. So 250 ARV, 75% is 187.5. Let's say, for example, this house needs 20 grand worth of repairs. So I know I can sell it to my buyer's list for 167.5. That means if I want to make 20 grand, I got to buy it for 147.5 as a wholesale. So I make 20 grand on that deal. So let's assume you got a lead, you made an offer of 147.5, you go off and sell it to your buyer's list for 167.5, you make 20 grand. That's amazing. It's an amazing living, right? You can make millions of dollars doing this. However, what I want you to consider is when you start to understand the Novation process and you introduce it during negotiations. In this deal, let's say I would have offered 100. And they said, nah, can't make it work. I got to get closer to 175. And we go back and forth. And eventually I say, hey, Chris, I may be able to help you, but it's only if I'm able to get you qualified for our equity protection program. Now, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I'm not certain that your situation or property would qualify. However, when I'm able to get customers qualified for this, sometimes I can really move the offer up, maybe even close or all the way up to what you're looking to get. Now, if I could get you all the way up to that 147.5 by getting you qualified for that program, could we go ahead and make a deal today? Let's just assume that they go, yeah, Chris, I don't care, man. If you can get me up to 147.5 and we can close here in 60 or 90 days, man, I want to get it done. Let's get it wrapped up. So you shake hands and you make a deal at the same number, 147.5. You didn't overnight become a better negotiator. You just added a layer of compromise in there before you agreed to the 147.5. Everybody follow me? I just get like a head nod or a thumbs up. We following so far on this example? Cool. So now you got it under contract for 147.5. Same house, same ARV, same reno, same seller. This is the exact same lead. Everybody else in your market's making 20 grand on. But now you understand Novations. You added in there, right, the compromise to get the Novation as part of the deal. And at 147.5 now the deal looks like this. ARV's 250. We know it needs $20,000 worth of reno. We want to price it aggressively so it sells quickly on the open market. We open it up on the MLS for 218.5, which is what it should sell for based on these numbers. I bought it for 147.5. My spread is $71,000 versus 20. So I have a wholesale deal where I have gross spread of 20 on the same lead, the same house, the same seller, the same acquisitions guy. I now created $71,000 worth of spread. I see with the people that we've coached and helped teach us to, 1 out of every 4 wholesale deals that they do, they're able to convert to novations and double and triple their profit. Because we're selling to a retail buyer most often using financing, right? They're always going to pay more than an investor that wants to make money. So that's the first way novations will make you a boatload more money. The second way is this. Now, these are deals that you're probably not doing now. So a very similar example, right? Let's say we have an MAO, max allowable offer of 142.5 to 167.5, which is 65 or 75% of your ARV minus your wholesale fee. Seller says, no way, Jose. I got to have 200 grand or I owe 200 grand. I'm sure none of us ever hear anything like that, right? And what we're going to tell you, the number I want you to get real comfortable with is what I call CCRV. It stands for current condition retail value. In layman's terms, for me, that simply means if I didn't lift a paintbrush and I took this to the MLS, what would a retail buyer pay for it if they wanted to live here? Okay, CCRV. As is, we don't say it. As is something good when you buy because it provides security, right, to the seller. But you don't want to use as is when you sell to a retail buyer. When retail buyers see as is, they think problems, hidden defects, run for the hills, right? So we get away from that language in Novations and we use CCRV, current condition retail value. So when you come across these deals where your max allowable offer is 167.5 and the seller wants 200, and we've done our best negotiating job, and we just end up exhausted with no money, right? We spent 2 hours negotiating with the seller and we just can't make a deal. But in this example, we know that CCRV's at or around 250. So normally what do? Option one is we plug it into follow-up and we hope that they change their mind, which doesn't happen too often. Or option two, which a lot of people do, which is awesome. It's a great way to monetize these leads. They call their real estate agent, buddy, Eric. Hey, Eric, I just met with Mr. and Mrs. Rude. I took a look at their house. Man, we spent a lot of time trying to make a deal work, and they're super nice people. They got a decent house, and man, I came all the way up to 167.5, and they really tried to work with me and came down to 200, but man, I just can't make my numbers work on a wholesale deal, right? So you end up referring it to a real estate agent. Real estate agent goes out, lists the property for 250, sells it in a week, and they pocket the commissions. Now, if you have ownership or you're a real estate agent, you can get commission referrals. In this case, you would make $1,800 on a real estate agent referral. And that's cool, right? If you can do that, and that's a good way to monetize your dead leads, that's pretty cool. It's not cool, though, when you look at the example on the right and what you can do with Novations. You take the exact same scenario, your max allowable wholesale offers 147.5 to 170, let's say. Seller wants or they owe 200. You know that cash current condition retail value is 250. You get them to agree to 200, right? So you come all the way up from your wholesale cash offer of 170 all the way to 200. We negotiate the novation terms, which generally means you just need reasonable access, their permission to put it on the open market, and you're going to need about 60 to 90 days to get the settlement. So now you get it under contract for 200. You call your real estate agent buddy. You list it for CCRV, which is 250. You pay out a full agent commission. We generally account for lender required repairs and about 1.5% of closing cost assistance to help the buyer with their down payment. And then depending on the state that you're in, you may have to pay a 1% transfer tax. Where I'm at in Pennsylvania, they do not tax Novation. So I have zero transfer tax. I'm not taxed at all on Novation, zero. The net proceeds from that transaction are $226,250. The seller gets the 200 that you agreed on, and you pocket $26,250. So this is a wholesale lead that you're getting now, right? You're making them an offer of 170. Their bottom line's 200. You're probably walking away from the deal right now. Novations will give you the ability to pay the 200 that they're asking and put $26,000 in your pocket without ever closing on it, without ever painting it or renovating it, without ever taking title. You don't have to have a real estate license. You make $26,000 on a deal you're throwing in the trash right now. So Here's what people normally ask me. Why wouldn't they just list it? Is the biggest question they always ask me. And who would do this? Well, I'm going to share with you. So we generate in our business about 400 leads a month, and we study them in batches of 100. And here's what I found. Out of 100 leads that I get from every lead source, we do television, radio, billboards, PPC, cold calling. Out of every 100 leads, about 10% of those leads look like this. The property condition is ugly and the distress is high, right? So we call this the seller seesaw. I know if I find an ugly situation or an ugly property, the seller is going to be super motivated. They're probably going to be distressed. That's a great wholesale opportunity. If someone called you and said, my basement flooded, the roof's collapsing, and I'm getting divorced, you should run out to the house. That is an amazing wholesale opportunity, right? Because they're going to be distressed and you're probably going to be able to get a killer deal. So, but it's only the only problem is it's only about 10% of all the leads that we get. 50% of the leads we get are like the opposite of what we want for a wholesale deal. The condition of their situation and the condition of the property is nice. That results in virtually zero motivation. We can't do anything with his leads. Here's the cool part. 40% of your leads look like this. It's what I call a balanced seller seesaw. Property condition is okay. Their situation is okay. And their motivation is moderate. They'd like to make a deal, but they don't want to give it away. And they're saying things like, Eric, I'm just not in a hurry. So this is the perfect opportunity to do a novation because the property condition is pretty good, which means I can sell it to a retail buyer that can move into it without a ton of inspection issues or appraisal problems. And there's enough motivation there where they're likely to work with me on the terms and just a little bit on the price. I don't need a huge discount to make these deals work. And they can be sold to FHA, VA, USDA buyers. So why that's like the third time I've said that. Let me explain to you the importance of FHA, VA, USDA buyers in this kind of crazy real estate market we're in right now. Between 2019 and 2022, if you were a low to mid credit score, low to mid down payment, FHA, VA, USDA borrower, you could not buy a house. You couldn't. You were getting bullied by hedge funds, 20% down conventional borrowers, people paying over asking price, waiving appraisals. You talk to any real estate agent and say, hey, if an FHA borrower with a mid credit score and a little bit of down payment called you in 2021 to buy a house, what would you tell them? The real estate agent would tell them, I can't help you. There's going to be 10 offers on the house. And if you're asking for seller's help, inspections, appraisals, your deal's not even going to get looked at. They're going to take one of the conventional offers or cash buyers. So when the rates started to go up, it pushed out hedge funds, it pushed out conventional 20% down buyers, and it opened the door for FHA, VA, USDA, mid credit score, mid down payment borrowers to come storming in. I would tell you for mid to low credit score, mid to low down payment borrowers that are FHA, VA, this might be their last good opportunity to buy a house forever. If the rates drop down, I believe, and everybody might have a different opinion. I think if the rates get down into or around the fives, the market's going to go absolutely bananas. And those people will be pushed right out of the market again. There'll be a 640 credit score with 10 grand down, need 5 grand seller's help, and they won't be able to get a seller to even consider their offer. And they'll end up paying $2,500 a month rent for a townhouse, right? So they're out in full force right now. They don't care about interest rates being 7% because they've been renting for the last 10 years, okay? So when you're able to sell your deals to those buyers, you're going to make more money than everybody else. So the net product is this. The exact same leads you're already getting. You don't have to do any new marketing source. You already have these leads. Matter of fact, after you watch this, the first thing you should go do is call and text everybody in your CRM and tell them you have a new program. You can pay them more for their house. Do they want to hear the good news? Here's what the net is. So generally, most wholesale operations, you have 100 leads. 50 of them are unqualified. 40 leads are unqualified for wholesale, and we convert about 10% of those to wholesale. Most people make about 17.5 average on a wholesale deal. So out of 100 leads, you'll do 10 deals and make 175 grand. The new way, you take the same leads, 50 of them are still unqualified. 40 of them now, remember, with that balanced seller seesaw where we can get a novation deal done, 10% we still convert to wholesale. But now our average profit across the board is 26.5. So now with the exact same amount of leads, we're doing 14 deals, not 10, and I'm making $279,000 instead of 175. You give yourself a $100,000 raise by just learning how to do these deals without any new lead sources. So here's how the paperwork works. You get a seller contract, which is an A to B contract. It's the exact same thing you're doing now. You just have to add about one line of text in there that says buyer reserves the right to novate property without any formal notice to seller. That's what a lot of people put in there for their assignment language. Once you get a ratified agreement with the seller, you get a signed notice of interest that records your interest in the property. About 50% of these deals that we do, we get a limited power of attorney, and I need the seller to fill out seller's disclosures. As soon as that's done, I go and I file the notice of interest in the public records that secures my interest in the home. If I have a POA, I'll sign the listing documents. I'll go to my real estate agent and I'll get it listed in the MLS for sale, right? Super easy. Any of you guys doing wholesale deals now, it's like one extra document. Then I get the property listed for sale. Buyer comes and says, hey, I'll take it for $250, right? First step is you have to sign the novation agreement. The novation agreement is what releases or replaces your original contract. It basically cancels out your original purchase agreement, but it memorializes your financial interest in the property, right? So you're releasing your contract, going under contract with the new buyer, but you have a protected interest because of the novation agreement and the net notice of interest. So now you have a ratified agreement between the seller, A, and the third-party retail buyer, C. Now we go to settlement. Title agent's going to go to clear title. They're going to see your notice of interest and the novation document. That's how you get paid, right? So they'll see the novation agreement recorded at 200. They'll see the new contract at 250 minus commissions, which nets 226, 250. They give 200 to the original seller, $26,250 to you. Generally on a HUD, when we see title companies do this, it shows up as a release fee. They kind of see it as basically the seller paying you that fee to release them out of the original contract, right? And that's why it's an insurable, lendable transaction, because you've been released from the transaction. You're no longer part of the chain of title. That's why it's financeable and insurable. So that's how novations work. I wanted to leave us some time for Q&A, and I'm done.
Eric, I got a question. So my wife's a realtor.
Yeah.
Is that a conflict of interest if you're novating and your wife listed on MLS also?
No, not legally. Matter of fact, she could buy them and list them. However, I don't like the optics. You have to over disclose, right? So if Patty went and bought the house as a licensed agent, she'd have to disclose, hey, I'm here to buy the house, but I'm a licensed agent. No big deal. However, when you go and list it, then you know how realtors are. Occasionally, they don't like people making more money than they do. They're going to start pointing fingers at Patty and say she's doing something wrong, and she's
double dipping.
Until she can prove that she did no wrong. It just gives people something to squawk about. So what I always advise is pick one or the other. If Patty buys the house, have someone list it. If someone else buys the house, it's okay for Patty to list it. But just don't
when you say buy the house, that you mean novate. When you're novating, you're buying the house. Is that what you mean?
I mean buy, like whoever goes and sits with the seller makes the offer and signs the original purchase agreement.
Yeah, gotcha. So what is the, you kind of went over a little bit about what that looks like as far as trying to explain to the seller why it's a good idea to do that with you. And I've had a little bit of other training with my other guys that were doing it for me in my office. They were calling it like their concierge service. Like I'm sure you've heard that term too.
Yeah.
Give these guys some language here on how they're going to explain in a little bit more detail how they're going to get them to want to novate and put it on the MLS without sounding, slimy.
Yeah, this is my favorite part. I'm glad you asked. Number one, I wouldn't say concierge service because service indicates a fee or a commission. And the only people that can make a fee or a commission for selling real estate have to be licensed. So I advise to stay away from that. You're very much committing to, like Chris said, well, what do you mean buy the house? You mean novate it? I mean, no, I'm signing a purchase agreement to buy your home. There's just happens to be language in there that gives me the permission to novate it, but I'm still buying your home, right? So it's very important that you use that language to tell them you're buying the house. Because one of the reasons they're going to do it is even though I'm going to list it and sell it and it's going to take 60 days, when you buy the home and sign a contract, mentally in the seller's mind, they're off the hook, right? The pain's gone. There's an end in sight. Thank goodness I got this resolved, right? So selling your house and paying for it are two different things. So you still want to continue to use the language, I'm going to buy your house. So the pitch that I normally use is this. I call it the equity protection program. Now, I grew up in car sales. I'm like a sales weirdo. Like I get like super like weird when it comes to that stuff. I love telling stories, right? And matter of fact, like clients love to hear stories, right? It helps them relate. So here's the story I tell. I'll say, man, Chris, I was really hoping we can make a deal here today. Man, I don't know if you know this or not, but in sales in my business, for every 100 people I talk to, Chris, you realize 90 of them tell me to pound sand. Like literally, they'll say, hey, man, you seem like a nice guy. Ain't no way I'm selling my house for 100. Kick rocks, get out of my house. Like every day I go home and it's like, man, I talked to 100 people and 90 of them kicked me in my shorts. They told me to get out. Like it'll wear you down over time, right? So after doing this for a while and getting my teeth kicked in, I went to my partner or I went to my boss or I went to my wife or whatever your situation is. And I said, Chris, boss, you got to help me out, man. Like I keep doing a really good job with these people. They love me. They want to sell me their house. But the way our cash offer works, man, I'm always like 20 or 40 grand away from making a deal. I'm 20 or 40 grand away from making a deal. I'm 20 or 40 grand away from making a friend. I'm 20 or 40 grand away from making them smile. And bro, I'm tired. I'm tired of going out and talking to 100 people, hoping that 10 will maybe take our offer. We got to figure out a way to pay people more for their house. Now, Chris is a smart investor. You know what he told me? He said, you're crazy. You can't just pay people more money and still be a good investor. But I wouldn't give up. I've always been, this you could say, I've always been too stupid to quit, right? So what did I do? I kept pounding away trying to figure it out. And you know what? After a couple months of putting our head together, we figured it out. We figured out a way to pay people more for their house. Now it's got to be in pretty good condition, kind of like yours. And the people got to be reasonable. They got to want to make a deal with me, which I kind of feel you do. Is that right? And at this point, they're going, yeah, man, I'd like to get this done. I'm not going to sell it for 100, man. I'm telling you. All right. So what we did is we came up with this program that allows us to pay more money for situations when it makes sense and still be a smart investor. Now, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm not even sure your property would qualify. And honestly, I'm not even sure if it's something that you'd want to hear more about. Is that something you'd like to hear more about? And I'm telling you, dude, I've done this 3,000 times. They're going to lean in like this and they're going to go, well, yeah, I'd like to hear more. So then what I tell them is, so Chris, here's the deal. What I would do is if we get you enrolled in this program is I'm going to go out and I'm going to shop your property on the open market. Now, again, I'm real big on language. I don't say list it. I sound like a realtor. And I don't say MLS. I say open market. I don't say showings. I say reasonable access. Right. So I change a lot of my language. And it might seem trivial, but I promise you after doing this for a long time, language matters.
Somebody post that in the comments what Eric just said. Name those three things are really key that you just said. You don't say MLS.
We say open market.
Open market. Let me write that. Let's see. Because that is huge, guys. Let me open market. What was that other thing?
Don't say list it. Like just eliminate that language.
Open market.
There's a lot of people that come to me and it's like, man, I've been pitching Novations for 6 months. I haven't got one. What am I doing wrong? I'm like, give me your pitch. And they go, well, it seems like you want more money. I could list it for you. Like, that, like, No, right? And then don't say showings, say
Don't
reasonable access.
say showings, say reasonable access. Okay. What was the third thing?
Just don't remove the word listing from your vocabulary. Don't say listing.
Remove the word listing. Okay. Got it.
So, Chris, what's going to happen, man, is like, honestly, these deals are really tough on us. It requires us to do a ton of work, but I'm willing to do it if that's what gets the deal done. So after you and I come to an agreement, right? And again, all I need from you is permission to take it to the open market, and I'm going to need a little bit of reasonable access. But let's assume you and I work through the details of that. I wouldn't expect you to move forward if it didn't make sense. But just humor for you a second. Let's imagine we were able to come to an agreement and shake hands. I'm going to go out and I'm going to work really hard to find one of three possible buyers. Number one is someone that would consider buying it in the condition it's in. But I can tell you a lot of the buyers out there that are in today's market with these really high interest rates, I'm sure you've seen the way that interest rates have skyrocketed. It's scared away a ton of buyers. That's why we're so busy. But most of the buyers that are out there, particularly in this price range, are first-time home buyers. They're always going to want a realtor involved, right? So I gotta settle up all these commissions. They're almost always going to have to get an appraisal done, and they're going to want to do a home inspection, right? So what I'll do is I'll basically insure all that stuff. I pay the commissions. If there's any inspection issues, I'm on the hook for that. And if there's any appraisal repairs that come back, I got to handle that as well. So a lot of times what happens is they'll do all of these things and they'll come back with like a page or 2 pages of stuff that they need me to fix. Man, it gets me so worked up because it's like this whole second round of negotiating. It really stresses me out. Have you ever had that happen to you? And they're going to go, yeah, man, that's why I didn't want to sell my house. Like I had a deal and then the appraisal got cut and they asked me to do $10,000 worth of repairs. I was pissed. Yeah, it's pretty difficult. But see, the beauty is because we do so much construction and we work so closely in the local real estate market, a lot of times when those people come back and they got a page of stuff that might cost someone like you $5,000 or $10,000, I can get that stuff done with my handyman for maybe a couple bucks. And as long as I can get it done and get you the money that we've agreed to put in your pocket, make the appraiser and the home inspector happy, I'm willing to do it. Listen, I'm not trying to make $1 million on this deal. I want to get you the money you deserve and get me a little bit in between. Do you follow? And they're like, yeah. Okay. So then the second buyer I'm going to go out and look for is maybe they'd like to buy the house. They love where it is. They're okay with most of the condition, but the wife absolutely has to have a brand new kitchen. Now, here's the cool part about that. They may come to me and say, hey, I see you're asking 250. We'll give you 260, but what you want to put a brand new kitchen in it. Now, here's the cool part, Chris. $10,000 is roughly retail value for a kitchen. But again, because I have such good relationships with contractors, I can probably get that kitchen done for 6,000. So in that situation, allows me to make another couple bucks because they want me to do some renovations. Now, don't freak out. I would never do construction on your house while you're living here. We would only ever consider doing that after you and I have settled up. You've got your money, the loan's approved, the deal's closed. We would only ever do it after settlement. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so the third buyer we would go and look for is someone that may want a kitchen, a roof, a finished basement, and a new furnace. Those deals are a nightmare. I don't know if you've ever done one. I hate them. The only way we would even consider that is if they paid us, quite frankly, an arm and a leg, not one or the other. I need both. Now, again, we would never do that till after settlement, and we'd want to make sure that you're paid, I'm paid, the bank's approved, and everybody's good to go. So the only way I can make the deal work is I got to go out and I got to market to these 3 to 4 different buyers, navigate through appraisals, home inspections, realtor commissions, and hopefully at the end, I can squeak out a couple bucks for myself, right? So there's a couple things that happen there. Why do I get into all these different elaborate stories about possible renovations? Every once in a while when I do these deals, I make 75 grand, 100 grand. I got HUDs. I got 30 HUDs on that slide deck I can show you. You can pull up the addresses. So then what happens? What's the seller going to say when they see I'm making 100 grand? I can tell you what a lot of them believe is I put it right in the remarks. Ask agent about possible renovations. I think what they think is when they see possible renovations and they see me making 75 grand, I think a lot of the sellers just assume that I'm going to do renovations after settlement. That's why I say, hey, Chris, I wouldn't, well, number one, I'm not going to renovate a house I don't own. And number two, when I would consider doing it, like if the buyer came to me and gave me a $20,000 non-refundable deposit to put a kitchen in the house after closing, I'd do it. Why wouldn't I? But most of the deals, I don't have to do that because we end up with multiple offers in these retail situations. And I don't want to do construction anyway. Or sometimes what I'll do is I'll just give them a credit. They want a kitchen and I don't want to fuss with it. I'll just say, hey, let's just give you a $10,000 credit as long as I got room in the deal. Right. So that's the words and that's the language.
Got you. That makes sense. So a couple more things too. Due diligence is the same as a wholesale deal. If it doesn't work out, you throw in an MLS and we can't get a buyer for it. We get out.
Like a bad check. Yep.
That's right. So that was my next one. And then you absorb. So if you got a big spread, you can absorb the realtor costs are all absorbed through you.
Yeah.
The inspection list that you go through is going to be absorbed through you. You're going to have to eat that too. Yeah. Whatever appraisals. And then.
Look, yeah. Here's an example. You want me to show you an example?
Okay. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that.
Look, here's a deal. I got this lead from TV. I'll explain this data set down here because you guys are doing mail and stuff, right? You guys are doing direct
most
mail.
of my students are doing mail.
Yeah, well, I love it. But mail's been my most successful lead source for 15, 16, 17 years. So this is a deal where I bought it at wholesale. I didn't steal it, but I got a good deal. I could have wholesaled it for $175. However, when we made the deal to come up to $157.5, I got the seller to agree. Look, I wrote the contract on December 30th. We had a settlement date of March 31st. Right? So I had January, February. I had 90 days built in. I got access. Right? You can see I didn't even put down a deposit. 99% of our deals, we never have to put down escrow money. And I had reasonable access and permission to take it to the open market. It sold to a retail buyer. I listed it for $209. It sold for $230,062. Look at the profit over there. This is what kills me about this business. I freaking love it. Look how much the seller got. See this net proceeds sheet? They got a check for $49,000. I got a check for $60,000. Right? I would have made 17 grand on a wholesale deal. I made 60 on a Novation.
And they can see that it's all on the HUD, right?
Yeah. Well, like
there's no way to hide that. There's no way to hide any of that.
Yeah, you can get a POA like I did on this one. See it?
Okay.
We were POA. They just got a check. Now
you guys understand what he says about POA. Power of attorney is what he means.
Yep, limited POA.
So what's different? And Chris, you was here on the last call, but last week we were talking about becoming the power of attorney, and we could list it on the MLS. And he actually gave us a website, Baycom, where we could actually list it and not even have to get a realtor involved. So it doesn't seem much different doing this Novations thing, other than the contract actually goes from an A to B to an A to C.
Correct.
And it's got
that's all the difference. That makes all the difference in the world. If it's not A to C, you can't sell to FHA, VA, USDA. Does that make sense? Like if you don't do the A to C and novate it, you can't sell to a retail buyer.
Yeah, Bo, this is to sell to retail buyers. Last week we were talking about wholesaling on MLS to investors. You kind of got to know which deals to put on to do a novation and which deals to put them on a contract and list them on MLS.
I would honestly just do both.
Brand new investors. We're trying to reach.
But you can do both. Like sometimes what will happen is one thing we don't realize in the wholesale business is there's cash buyers out there that aren't investors.
Right.
Right. So sometimes you'll get a cash buyer that pays $230, right? And they're going to live in it. But those are generally on the MLS. They're not on our buyers list because they're not investors. They're just someone that wants to live in the house and will pay cash for it. So Chris is absolutely correct. There's a difference between wholesaling on the MLS and the paperwork and disclosures that you need for that, and a difference between novating. Now, I'm a big proponent. I am anti-flat fee listing when you sell retail, and here's why. When you do a flat, like generally who does a flat fee listing? Like what type of seller?
Realtors.
Cheap people. Cheap people use flat fee listings, right? Because they can skip the agent and have to. Cheap people use the flat fee listing. So if you're a buyer's agent and you see a $250,000 listing that has a flat fee service and you know that that seller's cheap, how do you feel about selling that house? Buyers agents will walk around your property with a retail buyer if it's listed by a flat fee. Now, investors don't care. They don't care if you're cheap. They don't care. They're looking for a deal. I don't care. If I saw a flat fee listing service that had a good deal listed on the MLS as a fixer-upper, I'm going to buy it. I'll pay my agent cash to go buy it for me, right? I'll give them a commission out of my pocket if I can make the numbers work. But a retail buyer's agent, right, that's expecting a commission from the seller and they see flat fee listing service, they might not even show your property. Plus, once you start doing a couple deals, if you do flat fee, now you got to handle all that BS. You got to handle the appraisal. You got to handle home inspections. You got to handle the lender. When you do it through an agent, by the way, I hire my agents at 1.5% to list it, and I pay 2.5% buyer's agent commission. So call that $3,000. And you don't have to be any part of the sale. The agent will handle the whole thing for you. Does that make sense? You can go back out and keep making offers. The most profitable thing you can do in this business, in my experience, maybe Chris will tell you different, is making offers. You should be out talking to sellers. And most people, what you see when they do a couple deals is they'll get 2 deals and then they're working their ass off trying to sell them and they make a couple bucks and then their pipeline's all dried up because they stop marketing and stop making offers. So when you novate and you outsource basically your dispositions process to an agent, all you have to do is make offers and lock up deals. So you'll have a steady pipeline. Now you do 3 deals a month every month. Where I see a lot of investors, because they're trying to wear a marketing hat one day, an acquisition hat the next day, and a dispo hat the next day, their profit goes like this, right? They make 100 grand one quarter and 18 grand the next quarter. I don't know about you, but that stresses me out. I like consistent income. I like reliable income, and I want a lot of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Eric, what are you doing, Eric, if you're getting back to inspection and they beating you up so much in price and eating up all your profit?
Yep.
Can you go back to the selling, like, listen, we got to.
Yeah. So what I started doing is doing a home inspection on the front end. So 2 things happen. Now you got to remember, generally the homes that will work for this are nice. So you shouldn't be getting beat up, right? You don't want to novate a property that's all clapped out. Like,
yeah, you're not novating hoarder houses.
No. So what I do is a home inspection on the front. It costs me about $300, right? If I do find something that I was a hidden defect, I'll go back to the seller and renegotiate on the front end. Hey, Chris, bad news, man. You know, the home inspection we talked about, it revealed 1 or 2 things that we got to talk about. And now you have actual leverage, right? The other part is when the inspection comes back clean, I put it right into the associated docs with my realtor. Like any realtor that you deal with, say, I want you to post this home inspection in the listing agreement, and it's going to be part of our negotiations when we make a deal. And then what happens is when they make us an offer, I'll say, hey, Chris, we already had a home inspection done. Before we ratify a deal, I want you to accept our home inspection and consider waiving your home inspection. And in a competitive market, if there's more than one offer, the buyer's going to do it. So now we don't have home inspections, right? So that's one of the benefits I always suggest on doing it on the front end. It costs you $300, but it'll cost you, because sometimes with retail, this is different than what you're doing with wholesale, right? Investors walk through hoarder's house. They don't care. Like retail buyers will run for the hills at the first sign of like a crack in a cinder block, right? So I like getting home inspections right up front. They read the home inspection. If there's an issue, I know about it before we even make the deal with the retail buyer. And a lot of times what they'll do is say, hey, we want these 3 things fixed. And if there are 3 small things, like we often do like GFCIs, which is a ground fault outlet, right? That shows up on a lot of home inspections, missing handrails, peeling paint, stuff like that, where you can give a credit and negotiate in the front of the deal. But that's a great question. I do home inspections on the very.
Is that what you're doing? You're just giving. you're giving credits more than anything. You're not going there and try to fix all this stuff.
No, on FHA, sometimes you'll have to do it ahead of time.
Right.
But again, if it's a handrail or something, it costs me $100. I don't care. But we only
Right.
do that after I have mortgage commitment, the appraisal's back, and loan is
Yep.
cleared and closed. So then you have a
Yep.
sure thing.
That was my next question. You do all this work, you spend $2,000 to get everything. You say you're making 42 grand and you spend $2,000 and then this deal doesn't end up closing. Do you put some kind of lien on the loan, or are you just at the risk you take where you can lose the 2,000?
No, you can record it as a mechanics lien, plus you have the NOI that's already recorded. So you have multiple.
Are you letting them know that though beforehand? Look, I'm going to go ahead and take care of these payments, but if this thing falls through, you got to give me the opportunity to try to find another buyer. And if you don't, guess what? You're going to owe me this $2,000 I put in your house.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, good.
And then we do. I'm not getting into it now because it's realtor retail stuff, but we have a bulletproof way. Now you can't. Sometimes deals just die, but I've been doing this long enough that I know where the different deals die. Like we use a document. I don't think I have a copy in here, but everybody knows what a seller's disclosure is, right? Yep. We ask for a buyer's disclosure. And the buyer has to tell us their credit score, how long they've been on their job, the source of their down payment, if they've ever had a bankruptcy. Why do we ask for that? Because it keeps us from getting into a bad loan. Because bad loans will kill a deal, right? That's how you could end up in a situation. So again, we have a home inspection on the front end. The two things that kill deals are appraisals and home inspections. Chris, you agree?
Yep.
So we get a home inspection on the front, and they got to give me their credit score, their blood type, their down payment, all that stuff, or I won't even do the deal with them. And then we underwrite the lender to make sure, that the lender's qualified. So when we get into these deals, we have a fairly high amount of security in knowing the deal's going to close. Again, some deals will blow up, but yeah.
Eric, just a question. How hard would it be to get a copy of the Novation agreement that you use? I'd like to take a look at it, maybe possibly use it one day.
Yeah, I'm going to give you. I wrote a book about the time and all the energy I put into building this out. Like this is about 16 years of, nobody does it this way. Like I discovered this in 2009 out of necessity, right? I had $20 million on the street and I couldn't sell any of my properties. And it took me about a year to build out and really understand this process. Novations have been used in government contracts for 100 years. But nobody, as far as I can tell, before I started doing it in 2009, ever really used it as a wholesale application in real estate. There were some people that were doing novations in real estate before, but they were flipping the house. They were like partnering with the seller, renovating it like a whole flip, and then selling it and splitting the profits with the seller. That's my life's work is in that book. You guys can have it for free. I sell it for $34.
And Bo,
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also, Bo, Eric's going to be at the meetup. He's coming to the meetup at the house. April 25th. You're going to better meet him in person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I teach and coach a whole program on this, but I'm here as a courtesy to Chris and to just open your guys' eyes and teach you. You can follow me on Instagram. I share tidbits and case studies about this stuff all the time, but I would go in and read this book. It'll give you a lot more context about how I really started doing this. There's resources in there with documents in there. It's chock full of free stuff. So go to that.
How did they get this book, Eric?
What's that?
Which website did they go to?
Go.brewermethod.com
to get the book?
/Rude. Yep, go right there.
Let me somebody put that in the handle here. What is it?
Or they could just screenshot it, Chris, and then do it right after.
Yeah, maybe someone can type it in the chat.
Go.brewermethod.com/root.
There we go. Okay, I see it. I'm going to screenshot it. I'll repost it in the group.
I put it in the chat for you too, Chris.
Perfect. And guys, you're going to meet Brewer. He's going to be coming to the Alliance meetup April 25th at the house in Lafayette, Louisiana. So you guys are going to be able to meet him. Dan, go ahead. You had a question?
Yeah. Hey, Eric, for the legal side of things,
Uh-huh.
I have a contract where it already the A and B contract is already allowing me to market
Yeah.
and obviously assignable. What was it that you said that you need to cancel the first contract for? What was the reasoning?
If you sell to a retail buyer, you cannot assign your contract to a retail buyer.
Oh, okay.
And if you've listed it, you've probably listed as your company as the seller, not the owner. You
Okay.
had to, because you wouldn't be able to list for them. You listed it as the investor. So when you sign the listing agreements, it says Dan LLC or DA Homebuyers LLC, right?
So Eric,
Yeah.
so your LLC has to list it on MLS. It's not going to be listed.
No, it's the seller. So either the POA, either the seller signs, like half of our deals, the seller signs the listing agreement. The other half, we use the POA and we sign as the seller. Because if the sell, like the listing has to say, let's say it's Bob Smith, it has to say Bob Smith seller on the listing agreement, so that when they write that A to C contract, it says Bob Smith to new home buyer Sally. It can't say Eric Brewer to Sally. When it gets the title, it'll get a big deny on it because I'm not the deeded owner of the property, and I can't sell to an FHA buyer if I'm not a deeded owner of the property.
Yeah, and the only way to hide your numbers, because if I'm making 60 grand rip on this deal, we have to do a power of attorney. So we could, that's how you can kind of double, that's like your way of double closing it.
Yeah. And we also do, so if I don't get the POA on the front end, when I know I'm making a 60 grand rip, I'll do a cash out where I'll have them come in 2 days before settlement. They sign a HUD that looks like I'm buying it. They get the 60 grand check or 30 grand check or 100 grand check, whatever it is. I'll go, hey, and in order for me to do that, I need a POA. They get when you give them their money, they'll sign everything, right? It's like, and again, you're not doing anything wrong. A POA, you can't go out and open bank accounts and credit cards for them. The only thing the POA can do, because it's limited POA, it's not a general POA, it's limited POA. The only thing the limited POA can do is sign documents in alignment with the sale of the home that was already authorized by the seller. They can't change the deal, right? So a lot of times we'll do that, and then they never see the proceeds.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, who's ready to start trying to novate? It's
the
another
best thing
tool
you
in
can
the
do is
tool
go back in your CRM. The greatest story I ever had, I talked to a guy named Matt Simmons out of Pittsburgh. And he went back like 3 days after I taught it to him at a mastermind. And he dropped, I think he said it was like 3,000 ringless voicemails and text messages that everybody had in his CRM. And he said this, he said, it's Matt Simmons. I made you an offer a while ago. Call me, I can pay you more money. And he got 9 contracts in 3 days. All deals that he made offers, couldn't make a contract, and he closed 7 of them. He's on my website as a testimonial with a big old grin on his face because he made 200 grand after buying me a couple cocktails at a mastermind. And it's really awesome, man. You know, I'm going to tell you, like, it's just, think about it, man. All you generally do is you walk around, you look for messed up people with messed up houses, and you try and buy their house super cheap. It's an honorable business. The marketplace needs us. But there's so many more people out there that are mildly motivated and have nice homes that'll let you make a couple bucks, right? So it just opens up all these new opportunities for you. You know, I started doing like seller finance and sub two a couple years ago, and I'm not a fan of sub two because of how much trouble you can get yourself in if the loan gets called. But I've made a lot of money on seller finance, and had I not, my net worth would be impacted by millions of dollars if I never learned seller finance. The same thing goes for Novations. If you're a serious investor and you're doing this to change your life, it is foolish not to do this. It would just be because you're being lazy. That's it. There's no other excuse to not. The only reason you wouldn't do it before is because you didn't know. But now you don't have that excuse anymore. You can't get back on Chris's call next week and go, who's ever heard of Novations? Every single one of you suckers got to put your hand up. So you don't have the excuse of saying, I don't know anymore.
No, I think, Eric, for a lot of these guys, especially me, I'm going to start doing it. You know, it's going to be the cadence of how you do it, how and the rebuttals you're going to get from trying to get a limited power of attorney. What do you say around that? And then, you know, explaining to them the exact thing of what you're going to tell them when they say, well, are you listing the property if I sign this novation? You know, that's what's going through my mind. Like all the rebuttals, you know, and you just have to work through that. But if they're getting their price, I'm like, well, look, if you're getting your price, if you know you wanted 180, I'm giving you 180. I'm going to go out and shop it to the marketplace. Are you okay with that?
Like I'll literally
You know,
say this, Chris. The reason I go through the 3 different buyers, I'll say, Chris, you know what? Before we make this deal, I told you I was weird with sales, right? Like I'll test people. I go, you know what? Hold on for a second. I feel like this is moving too fast. Chris, I just want to be honest. Like, if I do this deal, I literally hope I make $1 million. And don't say anything. Why do I say? Anybody know what anchoring is? Like what the theory of anchoring is? When you anchor someone, when I say $1 million, if I end up making 60, what do they think about my $60,000 profit?
It's little.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Like you should say that. You should say, I just want to let you know, I hope, and what do you know what they're going to do? I mean, I hope I make $1 million too, dude. It's not going to happen. You know what? You're probably right. However, I want you to know, Chris, I came here today to do right by you and try and make an honest living. The best way for you to get the most money out of your house is I'll connect you with my realtor. You go ahead and you market to those 3 buyers. I'll give you my kitchen installer and my contractor's number. That's the best way for you to get the most money out of the property. And you know what they're always going to say, Chris? I don't want to do that, man. That sounds like a hassle. And then after we've had that conversation, if I'm making 30, 40, 50 grand, what are they going to say? You can't be scared to have someone tell you no. And by the way, everybody goes, well, nobody's going to do it. Yeah, you're right. Except for about 15% of those 40 people that I showed you that have a nice house that want to make a deal, 85% of people are going to tell you no thanks. They're going to list it. They're not going to want to have you reasonable access. They're going to still tell you to screw off. But all you need is 15% of those 40 people to make $1 million. That's the beauty of this business. You can literally 9 out of 10 people can tell you to screw off and you can still be a millionaire. Like, it's crazy, right? So like, yes, there is that stuff that's going to come up. It does take practice just like anything else. But listen, I can tell you, it's harder to do what you're doing now. It's harder to buy stuff at 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents on the dollar than it is to pay 80 cents on the dollar and get a little room, get a little, flexibility from them. Some of the bigger teams I coach, they call me a year later and they go, dude, every deal my guys are doing, they're doing novations. I can't get them to buy wholesale deals anymore because it's easier. This is easier than buying.
You're giving them more money. Yeah. All the guys I'm talking to in the industry are they're leading with Novation, then going to wholesale.
It should be, and I would tell you, it's always the opposite way around. 100%. Sometimes what'll happen.
Lead with wholesale.
Oh God. Yeah. Like I'll say, Chris, I'll give you 100. You say no. And I go, well, I can get you in this program and give you 140. And then I walk through all that stuff and I talk about the 3 showings. You know what some guys will say? Let's just go with the 100. I'm going to tell you this. Again, I apologize for being a weirdo when it comes to sales. Here's what I believe. If you give people one offer, they feel compelled to get a second offer. If you give them 2 options, they feel like they have permission to pick one. If you give them 3, you confuse the piss out of them, and then they ain't going to do anything. So the best thing you can do is say, here's cheap and quick. Here's more money and a little inconvenient. Which one works best for you? Like, you ever go to, everybody goes to the gas station, right? I never put in 87. I feel like I'm getting ripped off putting in 93. So I choose the middle. It's just like options. correctly facilitated makes it easy for people to say yes. They're like, well, I want to get another offer. Well, Chris, I already gave you two. Like, pick one. Why you want to waste time getting another offer? It's gonna be one of these two. Just go ahead and pick one and save a lot of time. So, but we do, again, I covered a lot of that stuff. Instagram. I talk a lot about that.
Yeah,
stuff.
That makes sense. I mean, low ball cash offer and then offer him a little bit more. I think from playing devil's advocate here, just thinking out loud, you have to make sure that you leave yourself enough room. You have to know what retail is, and then you got to make sure you know how much work the house needs. You need to go walk it and kind of discount it enough to leave yourself a spread, and then you got to minus off realtor fees and whatever may come up in inspection. You got to know all these numbers too, guys. I don't want you to think it's going to be that easy. You're still going to have some skill sets here to and know your numbers to pull this off on the Novation side.
Yeah, I have a Novation calculator that you can get in the
When you agree, Eric.
You'll get a link to, I built a Novation calculator that you can figure all that stuff out.
From your website?
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, awesome, man. We're not going to keep you too much longer, and we have you on. This is really, really good, man. Eric, where can they follow you at?
Instagram's the best place to follow me. I'll put it in the chat here, Eric. Eric_Brewer_invest.
Awesome. And I'm pumped to have you come down to Louisiana, Cajun country, and come give my audience. Have you been to Louisiana?
Never.
Oh, you're gonna be in for a treat.
In for some good food.
Yeah. So my hotel's booked and everything. Man. Flights booked, hotels booked. I'll be there.
Awesome, man. We appreciate you coming on, guys. Make sure you go follow Eric. If y'all need help with him, go hire him as your coach. Go give him some love if you feel like you need more help with it. Besides that, guys, y'all can y'all hang tight while when we wrap up with Eric. Eric, do you have any final words?
No, I appreciate it, man. I look forward to seeing you. I love doing this stuff. If you guys have any questions, follow me on Instagram. I'm pretty responsive to DMs. I get a handful of them a day. So if I don't get back to you the same day, just be patient with me. I need to put you back as host here, right?
Yeah, I think you did though, didn't you?
I thought I did, but.
Yeah, I think you did. Let me see if it'll let me make you host again.
No, because he's still sharing.
Oh, let me go stop share. Where do I go to make you host?
Claim host. Let me see. It means. Let me see. Claim host. What does that mean? You are the host now. Okay.
Okay.
I'm the host now. Yep. Okay.
All right, y'all.
Yep. I got it back. Hey, appreciate you, Eric. You guys hang tight.
See
all right,
y'all.
Eric. Appreciate you, buddy.
Later. Thank you.
All right, guys. He's off. I wanted to talk to you. I have all the documents already. That Novation documents, limited power of attorney. I already have all his documents. Just so you guys know, I can put. I'm gonna post that all in the group. So I didn't want to say that without him on there, but I already have all his stuff.
That's gonna be huge. I'm gonna need that. I gotta watch all that shit over again. A few times.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you guys, this is what y'all need to learn this skill. There's wholesalers out there making they've doubled their wholesale business just by this method. And when I used to have a nationwide wholesaling team 2 years ago, we were doing this. We did a handful of them. I wasn't working in the office at the time, so I didn't really pay attention. But my partner was teaching and went to a mastermind and learned all this, and we were novating a few deals. It is a little bit more complicated, and the sales cycle is a little bit longer. But once you get a good pipeline going, it rolls. So Chase, let's talk. I'm gonna call you after this, Chase, about some deals. But I'm gonna start frontlining, leading with wholesale, like lowball cash, and then offer novations to all of our leads that come through with you guys and my partners. So
10-4.
Anyway, I hope that helps. Go watch this again. You may want to watch it again. Go read his book. I think it'd be a good idea to read it. But duplication, you gotta do things at repetition till you duplicate and you build unconscious competence. And you can do this without thinking about it. So it's just a matter of just deep diving into it. But other than that, I'll see you guys next Wednesday. If y'all need any help with anything, make sure y'all reach out to me and y'all keep pushing. See y'all guys next week. Y'all have any other questions before we go, or are we good? Yes, sir. You good? All right. I'll see y'all next week.
Later.
All right. Peace. Later.